This is not a D20, but if you're watching this video, you probably already knew that. It's a D12. And I think over the next year, a lot of TTRPG fans are going to be rolling this a whole lot more than a D20. Or should I say, rolling these. Daggerheart just launched, a brand new fantasy RPG system created by the folks at Critical Role and Darrington Press, and I had the opportunity to sit down with its designers Matt Mercer and Spenser Starke to talk about what makes this system so unique, why players and GMs alike might fall in love with it, and the most important question of all, what is my cat doing back there? Why make a new RPG at all? Why? Why Daggerheart?
I've been playing tabletop games for a long time, and I've played a lot across the spectrum of what's to offer out there. And, there's very much kind of an old school and new school kind of way of thinking when it comes to game design. And there's aspects I like about both. And my heart really sits in fantasy as a genre, and it has since I was a kid.
This is Matthew Mercer, and I don't think he needs much of an introduction. He is the DM of the wildly successful D&D actual play Critical Role, a show that is often cited as being one of the main catalysts for D&D and TTRPG's rise to mainstream over the past decade.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Critical Role, where a bunch of us nerdy-ass voice actors sit around and play Dungeons & Dragons.
It looks like these are not just enchanted objects. They are currently looking to make a mess.
We just started and I've lost control.
The thing is, Matt's played many TTRPGs and obviously has a lot of experience with D&D, but there are so many playstyles out there and so many TTRPGs that cater to those different playstyles that it can be hard to find one that fits your game table just right. And I've heard from many TTRPG players and game masters who just wish they could make their own. Matt did just that.
There's like a fine balance between the enough crunch and customization options where I can really make things my own, but still kind of be narrative focused and having rules that support the type of play that we enjoy at the table at Critical Role. And I'm sure some people have had similar experiences. A lot of times the story I want to tell or the way we want to play, we have to fight the rules to get there or ignore them entirely. And you have to customize and push it to a certain degree. And that's totally great. And it's worked great for my enjoyment for a long time. But when Spenser came on board and we had kind of ramped up Darrington Press as an actual possible thing, the question was, why not just make a system that suits the type of play that we enjoy as opposed to having to fight what exists out there?
One of the things that I really love about the tabletop games world is that there are games for all types of players.
This is Spenser Starke, lead designer of Daggerheart, who has had a really interesting career in not just game development, but video production as well. He's had a hand in creating games like Alice is Missing, Kids on Brooms, Icarus, and Candela Obscura. And he's no stranger to running actual plays himself.
I really enjoy narrative forward games, fiction first games, things that come from the Forge in the Dark or Powered by the Apocalypse or that kind of indie space where we're really looking at the narrative taking the primary focus and then the mechanics supporting that narrative. But I also really love maps and minis. I love painting minis. I love making terrain. Matt, I know you and I share this where we could just sit and paint minis for forever and be perfectly satisfied doing that. And so I really missed from some of these more narrative forward games, the opportunity to do my maps and minis at the table and have them matter in a significant way. And so I when I set out to sort of start this process, it was with the focus of being able to run narrative forward campaigns I love from those systems with the maps and minis of and combat of the other systems that I love. And so that was kind of the marriage of the two things that made Daggerheart.
Yeah, it's very much born from the idea of what are the things we love about all these games?
Yeah.
Can we take all those things and put them together and make something that there's less of a fight to get to where we want to play, and instead just have it all support that experience and offer that to our community and people out there that also enjoy that sort of game experience.
So that's the why. They wanted to make the game they wanted to play, and it's very clear from talking to them just how passionate they are about this. They want to create a fluid game that is cinematic, narrative-focused, where the players and the dice have more say in building out the collaborative story. And most importantly, they wanted to make something different.
I think one of the things that is really that's really been fascinating to see, it is the way in which people are learning a new style of play and jumping into Daggerheart. And I think that one of the things that is maybe not deceiving, but is like that I think people should prepare themselves with, if they're used to more classic D20 fantasy games and they're jumping into Daggerheart, is that the actual like mode of play, you have to prepare yourself to like shift into kind of a different style. And that can be intimidating at first, or it can be new and feel like you're not quite sure how to do it. But the minute you find it, I feel like I've watched GMs have the moment where the minute they find it, they're like, oh, I got it. I know, and I can run with that. I remember, Matt, the first time we were exploring the system together, we watched the players kind of like have the realization of like, oh wow, no, actually this is all fluid. And just that mind shift of like moving into this new style of system, I think is something that is really exciting for me anyway.
Yeah, I'd say like being used to other systems that have those very regimented styles of play where those gear shifts are so hard, there is almost like a comfort of what you know, between those things, that whereas with Daggerheart, because it is one fluid experience, the way the game plays doesn't really change much and goes from like, narrative to exploration to combat, and it all kind of goes together. That could be it's a new experience for some, but it brings in an aspect of active listening where I've seen it definitely at my tables and beyond that, but it definitely helps reduce a lot of the, okay, I took my turn, aspect of it, because anybody could jump in at any time, and everyone has ways to help each other at any certain moment that will impact the narrative. It really kind of lends itself to a dynamic, unexpected flow of every sort of encounter or challenge that you have. And I feel it's very arresting and engaging, especially if coming from places in the gaming space where it is very much like take my turn and then wait for 20 minutes. And I'm really, really happy how this turned out, because a lot of this was theoretical. A lot of this was us just, messing in a back room and iterating on it and getting to kind of break it open and throw it out into the open beta and see how people were impacted by it. It was really cool to see like, oh, this is working. It's working.
Now, one thing I've seen online leading up to this release is a fear that this game will be released, then nothing else really happens. It happens with a lot of new TTRPGs. We get a rulebook, maybe 1 or 2 official adventures, then nothing. I personally think for a game to have a healthy and long shelf life, new settings and adventure modules or alternatives need to come out at a steady rate, not necessarily relying on third-party creators. For the future, are you planning a consistent release schedule for new adventures or new settings and expansions after launch?
You might take it? I'll take it. Right now, there is like so much stuff that we want to do with this system. And as far as the schedule is concerned, there's nothing I can talk about yet, but know that we are actively every day developing new stuff for this game. And we're really excited for you all to see what we've been working on. Even, obviously like getting the launch out is number one priority, but we are always continuing to iterate and make things, and you'll have the chance to see some of that soon.
Yes, definitely keep an eye out for announcements as the year goes on. There's man, it's almost as fun to develop for this game as it is to play it. And there's a lot of really, really cool ideas that we had along the development process that were like, oh, we can't fit that in the core book, but we got plans.
My next question is specifically about what makes Daggerheart great for game masters to play. But don't worry, I asked the same question for players right after. But here, all you need to know is that in Daggerheart, when players roll well, they get hope tokens, which allow them to do cool stuff. But when they roll badly, the GM gets a fear token, which allows the GM to complicate the story in some way.
I mean, man, the fear tokens and like the fear system itself is such a great way to just visually build tension, especially if they're visible to your players. And just the acknowledgement of you gathering fear, it naturally ramps up the stakes of what's to come without you having to do much beyond just accept a token. But it's also, the system allows a really great invitational way to learn how to GM if you haven't before, or to like further expand on your experience as a GM, that's there utilizing how to incorporate changing the story, how to change situations and up the stakes in the moment, either using fear or using the consequences of a player action. Like, those are just kind of baked into its system beyond just like a fiat of a choice you make, which I think is very helpful for newer players. But what I love is, as a GM, the push and pull of how conflict works as well with the hope and fear mechanic. It lends to a very dynamic flow of no one knowing what's going to happen next. Beyond just like you might miss your attack and then it's your turn, or like things can change at the moment against the GM or for the GM. And so from a GM standpoint, it's always engaging. It's always exciting to follow. But I will say one of the pieces of tech that I've deeply fallen in love with, and we touched on it a little bit in the core book, and we hope to expand in the future, are environments. Environments more or less are like an adversary stat block like you'd see, in many other games, but it's for the place that you're at. And it can be a challenging location, like a dark haunted forest. It could be just an open city. And what it has is it has like a general difficulty for that region. And it has a number of passive and active abilities that the GM can pull, much like you put in your GM notes. Like if they go in this forest, they might run into a trap or they might run into a sinkhole. You actually mechanize them in the build for this. And as opposed to, you can improvise and put stuff in there any moment, but also it's just nice to have this additional layer of things that you can spend fear on to adjust the narrative and surprise the players, or to really kind of sit in the theme. And for players that don't have time to develop some of these places, or newer players, it's a really great tool to learn how to. I've been really, really enjoying the environments of the system.
One of the things I'm most excited for GMs to dive into are the campaign frames. So as Daggerheart comes in its base form, it's really about building the campaign around your players and sitting down and talking about, like, what do we want this to be? What subgenre do we want to be playing in? What kind of themes are we excited for? You pass a map around the table and you build that map out together. They build the characters, and as a GM, you take those backstories and those ideas that they have in, and you start to build the campaign. And for people that have been playing role-playing games for a long time, or even for people that really enjoy creative, like creating things from scratch, right? Creating from the base, which is usually how I prefer to play. Like that, all the tools are there to be able to do that. And also, if you want a really cool place to jump off of, if you want a subgenre engine that plants you and your players somewhere to start with, so you can ground yourselves in a setting or in a concept, for the campaign frames provide some structure for you to go and like jump right into a kind of like pre-built mix between a setting and like a situation of what the campaign could be, what the overarching idea of that campaign is.
I mean, same question, but back at players. What are some of the best features for players when playing Daggerheart?
Oh, man. I mean, one of the great loves for tabletop games for me, especially in the fantasy genre, is the character creation process and the customization. Building a character that feels unique to you and what you want to do in this world. And the character development system in Daggerheart is deeply customizable to a really exciting degree. Having each class as an overlap of 2 different domains, and within these domains, you customize which abilities you choose at each level up, with the abilities to go into specialization of subclasses or to multi-class from that point as well. It's very rare for 2 characters to be built the same way unless you're intentionally doing so. And there's a lot of room for us to expand in the future on it. Like, to me, the opportunity to look at this and go like, oh, there's a lot I can continue to build and iterate and make a shit ton of characters that I'll probably never play, but I know I can have them in the background like I've been doing for the past 30 years. Like that to me is really exciting. But the hope and fear mechanic for players, I think, is a really fun dynamic ability within the system, or the actual like dice rolling past the system, where the players' turns always impact the story. Even on like a not so great roll that misses, but you get hope. You still get a resource that you can spend on cool abilities. You always have something at your disposal that you can work towards, even in the points of failure. And then an abject failure just makes the story exciting in that moment by nature of what it does. You know, if you have a really bad roll, your turn's not over and it just goes on. Like something is going to happen that's going to change the story. It throws it back to the GM. It gives the GM a fear and an opportunity to go ahead and show that consequence impacts the narrative. For players, just the hope and fear dice really makes this, the story is always changing, and you never feel like you have too much of a turn where nothing happens, which is to me one of the most frustrating facets of tabletop games.
Yeah, I think Matt, you really hit on a couple of my favorite things, which are like the domain cards. I think the domain cards are so fun. One of the things I love in game design in general is using cards, because I think they make play really accessible. Because if I'm looking through the things that I can level up with, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to look at these and I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to just take it. And now I have it. Now I have it in my hand. But also there's unique art for each of the domain cards, which means that as I'm looking down at my hand of stuff that I have available, like there's a reinforcement of like, not only is the text there, but like, oh, I can look down and see, oh yeah, I can do that cool thing because I can see it on the card, which I think is so fun. And one of the things I really enjoy about having cards. And then the other thing that I am really excited about is experiences. Experiences in Daggerheart are a way for you to be able to customize your character to the nth degree, because you are essentially creating like specific narrative tag that that describes something your character has experience in because of the journeys that they've been on, and allows you to spend hope and apply a bonus to a roll if that experience would help you to do better there. Instead of having like a whole skill list of stuff that you have to choose from, which some other systems you can really customize that way. And we really wanted to go streamlined on this side of the design space to say like, no, you just get to write pirate. And then if you want to do something that's piratey, you can spend a hope and you can apply pirate to the roll and you'll do better because you're a pirate. And so we found that really encourages players to think about what their character has gone through and what they're excited for them to do. And two, it reinforces playing your character in the way that you've built them, because if I have pirate and I know if I do a piratey thing, I can spend a hope and get a bonus to that, then maybe I'll approach this the way that a pirate might approach this. Right. So there's like this feedback loop of like, you get a bonus and it encourages you because you get that bonus. And so then you start playing that character in that way. And then as you level up, you also add additional experiences based on the travels, the adventures that you've had. So now you're building your character up based on the stuff that you've done, which I find really exciting.
Yeah, no, like the freedom to kind of make your character kind of however you want to outside the rules as written. And then I didn't even think about that. Yeah, developing them as the journey goes on, which is what would happen. I love that. I also asked if we would be seeing Daggerheart in the main Critical Role campaigns in the future.
I have no comment on that at the moment. We are developing a lot of fun things in the future. So I say just keep an eye on socials and everything we have in the future for things as we announced and revealed, but we got a lot of fun stuff cooking.
And I asked if we would be seeing Exandria in Daggerheart.
Can't talk too much on it at the moment. We're developing a whole bunch of fun things in the future. But I love Daggerheart and I love Exandria, and it that would be a delightful marriage. However, we decide it may come to pass.
This was mostly for me because I love Exandria and would love to see setting and adventure books for that world in Daggerheart in the future. Also, the guys were awesome with their answers here. I'm sure they're getting asked those questions non-stop, and really, they don't have an answer for us yet. Not one they're willing to share. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. But then I was curious to know, what do they personally enjoy in Daggerheart? Is there any specific mechanics that they love?
I will say more so than most of their systems, and this definitely leans into kind of the new school game design facet, incorporating questions as a GM to a player as a main narrative focus, and empowering players to build in those questions. If a player is actively trying to search an abandoned shack in case something interesting is down there, and they successfully break the lock and open the door, and then you turn to the player and say, what do you find? And let the player go, oh, well, I find and give them the opportunity to kind of build that hope and expectation. And then, as the GM, you can temper it a bit and kind of rein it in. And, back in that push and pull, you learn more trust in each other as the game progresses. Because some players might be like, well, then I find a million gold pieces and I win the game. And you're like, and then you break from your daydream and look within the empty shack and find there's nothing. It's an opportunity to build that trust over time. But also for players that are already in that space, it's a really cool invitation to kind of build the world from there. And as a GM, that's an option whenever a player is wanting to do something very risky in the game. You can offer them the opportunity to, like, if you really, really want this, even though you failed the role, I'll give it to you. But this is the consequence if you take it. And then you leave the choice to the player. And kind of, you have the opportunity to kind of lean into that devil's bargain aspect of the story within the actual game mechanics and the way that it's presented to you, which leads to some really, really fun, tense moments at the table.
One of the places that I really love to lean into those questions, which is one of my favorite things playing games widely. No matter what system it is, I love leaning into questions and allowing the players to build. It's like if somebody has a group of guards that are chasing them from their hometown, and they've been chasing them for months, and they're like, and they finally show up. I will oftentimes turn to the player and say something like, you see the crest on the armor of this guard, and you immediately know that you've seen it before. Tell me what the crest on the of the guards in your hometown were. And then they describe like a dragon that is picking up a snake or whatever. And I go, great. You see the crest of a dragon picking up a snake on the pauldrons of these guards. And they go, oh my God. And it's like this really cool, like, they are bringing that information to me because they know their characters, they know their backstory better than I do. And so allowing them to like inform the story there in that moment really helps them to feel involved and like they're supplying something to the story as well. And it's so funny because a lot of the fun for me in Daggerheart is just holding up a mirror to the players. So they might tell me in their backstory that they are searching after this ancient relic. And then I hold up that mirror in session 1 and say, here's where it is. And they go, oh my God, I know where I can get the thing I've been searching for. And it's like, they're now suddenly excited about the campaign because I've taken a mirror and held it up to them and went, see the thing you want? I'll show you how to get it. And that creates this like dynamic that it creates a buy-in for players.
Yeah.
That is irreplaceable at the table for me. I think the other thing that I personally really enjoy from Daggerheart is on the GM side, the opportunity to spend fear to like basically make an improv fear GM move, meaning like I know I want to do a big thing and I know my players will trust me to make that big move, and I'm going to spend a fear here to show them that I know what I'm doing is big. It sort of creates a trust with the GM of like, I'm not just doing this for free in some regard. It's like, yeah, there's going to be a bad thing that happens and I have fear to spend it just like you have hope to spend. And so as play turns back to me as the GM, I go, I'm going to spend 2 fear and this big thing occurs. What do you want to do about it? Right. It shows this like understanding that I know the weight of what I'm about to do. I know how I'm putting my hand on the scale as a GM. And I think that's really exciting. I think it's really like a fun way to be able to engage with your players and build trust at the table.
And in the modern TTRPG landscape, safety tools are important.
Yeah, so there's a section on safety tools and a section for session 0 play in the book built in. And I think in particular, the session 0 section is pretty robust because one of the important things that we find, especially with Daggerheart, is that as a GM, you're bringing your players together and kind of asking them what they're excited to do, bringing the stuff you're excited to do as well, throwing it all in a pot, mixing it all up before you start your first session and you're off and running. I don't know, Matt, if you want to talk about some of the stuff that you've done on session 0s with Daggerheart.
Yeah, it's the session 0 has become it was for a long time for a lot of people who played the game. It was just kind of an unspoken thing that people did that's become more of a not just a discussion point, but a very viable inclusion in most game experiences, both for the usage of safety tools and making sure everyone at the table feels comfortable going into a game, but also to help everyone buy in before they just enter a tavern and go like, what are we doing? Where are we? Like it's become such a great way to get everyone excited for the game and to get buy-in. And the way that we've kind of constructed what the session 0 is and the mechanisms to help you run that as a GM and as players together, along with like the collaborative world building facets of the coming campaign, it makes it a fun thing you look forward to. Like session 0 is always a cool thing to do and an important thing to do, but in Daggerheart, session 0 is a very fun thing that happens before the other fun thing happens. And that to me is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I'm a huge online tool guy. I use them for encounter building, character sheets, searching rules, and combat trackers. And I like having them all in one place. So what's Daggerheart's plans, online tool-wise, for the future?
Yeah. Good.
So we have partnered with Demiplane, who we partnered with during the open beta, to basically help us like make this accessible to people no matter what form you're playing, whether you're at the table or whether you're playing online or playing by post or whatever it is that however you want to engage with Daggerheart. So Demiplane, who's now also part of Roll20, is our partner on that. And they've built some phenomenal tools that I can't wait for everybody to get their hands on. They're beautiful. And there's a couple of surprises coming your way too on that front. So we can't wait for those to be revealed. I don't know when they're going to happen, but I'm just on the edge of my seat waiting for them to drop. We got some cool things coming.
I talk a lot about the fun of TTRPGs for me not being about long-running campaigns or incredible storytelling or even really fun mechanics. I mean, obviously, all those help, but for me, it's about the moments, the memories. So when players look back and can say, remember that one time that one thing happened? Or remember that one time that person did this? I think it's these moments that come together for me over time and make the TTRPG space so compelling to me. So I asked what Matt and Spenser's favourite moment is or memory from them playing Daggerheart.
Oh yeah, I'll jump in and say, and a little bit of it happened in Age of Umbra, which will be coming out soon. But like those moments where players are, you ask the question that empowers them to build a world like that, and then later get to show how their choices impacted that, is such a magical moment to me. I've had examples in the playtests where a player is looking for information and they uncover something about a dangerous location that they're supposed to go to, and they're like, trying to figure out how to research what things they could look out for in this area. And then when they uncover the document, I'm like, and what do you find on the document? And the player goes like, okay, well, it's been crumbling, since the past century over bad weather. There's a terrible creature that lives in a cave along the path. And, they start making up all these dangers that they think might be part of this location they have to go to. They're basically creating the information they were looking for. And then later when they go to it, I've built an environment block sheet for this environment that includes all the things that they mentioned. And then they begin to encounter the things they researched and created in the moment. And it's another, like watching their eyes go like, oh no, I made the problem for ourselves, while also being like, this is so cool. I got to build this environment without realizing I could. Those moments through playtesting were really, really amazing, unique experiences that I haven't had in other RPGs and still continue to have with Daggerheart, which is really, really fun.
Early on in playtesting, the very first campaign that we ran, I had, before anybody even knew that it was Daggerheart, it was Abria Iyengar and Danny Gage, who's on the project with us now as a development coordinator, and a couple of other people, all playing this like secret game they didn't know that I had even made. And we had a session where they were going into a dungeon that was kind of like very Escher-esque. And they were trying to, I basically wanted to like combine like Escher-esque a dungeon like pathways with a platform. And so I built on my table this entire like out of massive pieces of box and styrofoam, these like pillars, and then they had a room that when they moved the levers, the room would turn, and I had an actual like 3-sided cube that would flip in all directions with like ropes and things. They had to like pull levers to be able to get ropes to drop the way that they needed so that they could get to certain areas. And then they had to like climb on top, and there was a whole like puzzle of moving the levers to be able to climb up. And then I attached a massive like cardboard and foam structure to my ceiling, so that when they got up to like, they would literally jump across all the platforms and then go up to a thing on the ceiling. I had to get on a ladder and put stuff up there as they were climbing. And being able to have with Daggerheart, because you're not like working on grids, because you're working like on ranges that are coming from Theater of the Mind and then being approximated at the table through through like general distances, and the GM goes like, oh yeah, sorry, this thing to this thing is at the table only 6 inches, but in reality this is very far, or this is far range, right? And so you can just like establish that fiction for the players and be like, you see 100 feet between you and this thing over here, and then we put it on the table to like approximate what that is. Having that variability with the maps and minis allowed me to build like the most mad scientist set piece that I've ever made. And it was a blast. And they were moving from combat to like figuring out how to do the puzzle, because there were things attacking them while they were like trying to figure it out. So having that flexibility, I think it was like a level 8 playtest, I think. And I was realizing at that point, like, oh, this is the kind of thing that I want to run all the time. And so, yeah, so that was the moment where I think the green light for me of like, you're on the right path, keep going.
Now, Spenser, you took pictures of this because you sent me some. You will have to post these at some point.
I will.
People can see this.
I'll find them and I'll post them. It was so fun.
And yeah, once this video is released, Daggerheart will be out officially on the 20th. Thank you so much, Spenser and Matt, for this interview. And yeah, Daggerheart is out now. Expect a full review from me over the coming days, and I'm going to be streaming a bunch this week going over this new system, so make sure to come say hi. Thanks for watching.